Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 112. Tonight, the topic is the conversation you're avoiding is the one you need most. And I am joined with Zoe Beckham. And listen, if you have ever found yourself venting about someone on your team, only to realize that you've never actually talked to them about it, then this episode is for you. Zoe has experienced this same trend in school after school, frustrated leaders avoiding direct conversations. We're going to talk about why it happens, how it's holding teams back, and what actually it takes to face the issues head on without drama or dread. So if you've ever said, I just don't want to deal with it, or you've thought that, this conversation is going to be for you. Now, before we get started, I do want to remind you that I've got something on the website that is going to help you leaders to give your teachers some of the things that they want and need without spending a dime and without micromanaging, but instead holding people accountable in a way that makes them want to be a part of your team. So you're going to go to catchingupwithkc.com/clarity over clutter, and you are going to find a free 30-minute training with resources so that you can be the leader who holds people accountable, but also gives teachers what they need. This is also going to help you, by the way, have some crucial conversations. And so with that said, let's get started with tonight's episode. And I'd love for you to share as you are listening in what your thoughts are. Here we go. Hey there, welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. If you are tired of chasing buy-in, frustrated by teams who just can't seem to get on the same page, or over the constant struggle of holding people accountable without feeling like you're micromanaging, this is the show for you. I'm Casey Watts, team leadership expert and the host of this show. I specialize in clarity, collaboration, and character, and I help leaders just like you take teams from chaos to cohesion, from frustration to alignment, so teams can actually work together toward a common purpose instead of against each other as though they are functioning in different organizations. Whether you lead a single team or a team of teams, on this show, we talk about strategies that are going to help you create a culture where accountability and autonomy go hand in hand. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation and learn how to lead clarity-driven teams. Hey, Zoe, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to have you on the show. I know this is really going to be a hot topic, and a lot of people are going to be interested in this topic. So I can't wait to hear the feedback from listeners after they listen to this episode. Let's get started by having you share who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. My name is Zoe Beckham, and I am originally from New Orleans in Nashville, Tennessee these days. I'm a co-founder at Pivot School Improvement Leaders, and we work with K-12 schools, with principals, assistant principals, and district leaders on improvement projects that are pushing change in schools and driving student outcomes across the state. And we're just about 3 years old and just growing and really excited to do the work. It comes from a place of the folks on the team and my co-founder have been in school improvement work for years and years and years. And it's a niche and there's a lot to learn and it can feel really isolating. And so we're really, really excited about building community for leaders to learn and do their work together. And we're seeing some really great, incredible results and are just really energized by everyone and their commitment and passion and their energy, honestly, in continuing to work and grow and push this work.
That's awesome. And that is hefty work that you're talking about. It's not easy work. It's not short-term work. It is long-term work. It is deep work, but also extremely fulfilling when done well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you might have done some because you got it. You nailed it.
A little bit. So I also want our audience to know a little bit about what makes you uniquely you. Like if you think about what makes you just super normal and human to the point of almost sounding a little bit odd or strange to people. Like, what are superstitions you have? Like, just think about for a second a superstition or a unique hobby or something that you think that you're like, wow, if people knew that I thought this, it would be like, you're a little bit strange. What might that be? I'll go first if that's helpful.
You can, yeah, sure.
Okay. So for the longest time, I've always loved frosted mini wheats.
Okay.
But I cannot eat just a bowl of frosted mini wheats with milk in it because I don't like when they get soggy. So I have a system for eating frosted mini wheats, and I have a glass of milk, and I will pick out the frosted mini wheats that have the most frosting. And it gets more specific than this.
Okay, this is intense. Keep going.
It is. It's strange. I know.
Yeah.
I realize that. But
Or is it strategic?
It is strategic, yes, because I find the ones that have the most frosting, and I put it in my mouth with the frosting side down so it's on my tongue. And then I take a drink of put milk in my mouth, and then I eat the frosted mini wheat.
You're wild.
Mini wheats. It's a wild life I lead. Yeah.
Danger.
So I can't be the only one that has some kind of unique. That's not the only thing.
No, where there's one, there are many.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's less a tangible thing that I do, and I think it's more like to an obnoxious extent. Like, find someone in my life, they'll be like, "Yes, it's obnoxious." To an obnoxious extent, I can pretty much relate most things to a movie reference or a song lyric. That doesn't really make any sense, except for in my brain, I'm like, this is exactly like that moment where, or I'll quote some song that makes no, and everyone's like, yes, but no, but what?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's definitely something I do.
Okay. So then here's your challenge tonight. As we are going through this episode, I really would love to hear a reference to a movie or a song lyric. I'm all about that.
Can't wait. Do I have a number limit? Do I need to stop at a certain number?
No.
We'll just see. Okay. We're going to keep going until the Lord says no.
As many as you can.
Oh my God.
I'll tally it.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic.
All right. So really though, and I think actually tonight's episode is going to lend itself pretty well to song lyrics and movies, right?
Yeah. We've already got an obvious one with John Mayer's Say What You Need to Say.
Oh my gosh.
Come on. Okay. I shouldn't even get a point for it because it's just low hanging fruit.
No, you have to. I'm giving you a point for that because our topic is all about the conversation that you're avoiding is really the one that you need to have most. Totally agree with this. Can't wait to dive into this topic. And so I'm just going to start by asking, and I tell my audience and I tell all of my guests this before we get started. Chances are I'm going to go off script and ask questions that I didn't even write down because I really want to know what interests you most about this topic. Like, why this topic? Because you chose this. I didn't choose this. You chose this. And so I'm wondering why this topic?
I think because it's everything. It's in everything. Communication itself is usually in some sort of it's somewhere in the problem. And so, a lot of the work that we do is we coach leaders one-on-one in various settings. So a principal, an assistant principal, someone in the district. And, I don't live your life. I don't know. And so part of my job as a coach is to really listen and be curious and ask questions. And so as I'm understanding context and kind of hearing perspective of the leader I'm working with, I'm trying to figure out what has gone wrong. And it's always fascinating that we can't really see ourselves. And so I'm also trying to figure out what has gone wrong that this leader might not know about. And time after time after time, it's some form of communication. And it's staggering the number of times I ask a question what do they say when you bring this to them? And the answer is, oh, I haven't.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest and say I hear that as a coach and I'm like, of course not. But then also as a human being, I could find 10 of those things in my own life, so I don't want it to sound like I see this all the time and I never do it. We all do this.
Yeah.
And I think we do it for a variety of reasons, but it stands out to me because of how common it is.
Hmm.
And I think that we use a number of reasons or rationale for why we avoid saying the thing that needs to be said. And it ranges from like very rational to very emotional. But and we have varying levels of understanding and awareness that we are avoiding it.
Yeah. So then let's talk about why. Let's dig a little bit deeper into why people avoid those direct conversations, even when they know that it needs to be addressed. What are the reasons behind that?
Well, I want to backtrack us just a little bit because I think sometimes they don't know. So
Mm,
I think that's one thing. Like it's not always an active avoidance. I think
hmm.
sometimes there's an assumption that communication has taken place. There's that quote about how like one of the worst assumptions is that about communication is that it has taken place. And so I think sometimes that has to do with a medium, like I send a newsletter or I put it in an email or I made a facial expression. And so how could they not know is like, kind
Yeah.
of a loop that we have. A thing that we do as humans a lot is we interpret the world through our own experience, through our own lens. And so if I would always read my email carefully and ask questions if I had questions, then I assume everyone else is doing that. But there's a lot of people who read that email and they're like, I don't quite get that. I'm sure if it's a problem, someone will say something and I'll learn about it later. And so then that person goes on and doesn't do the thing that they need to do. But I'm assuming they read it, they know, and they're choosing not to do it. And so I get confused about whether or not communication is actually taking place effectively. And then I ascribe meaning to something that I actually don't understand because I haven't actually said anything about it, which I think is sometimes we're like, oh, you're conflict averse. But a lot of times the things we don't say something about are expectations we've set that people are not meeting. But we've never even done the very light touch of like, hey, we said this and I don't see that happening. Like, everything okay?
Right.
Just a very neutral,
Hmm.
everything good. Like it doesn't assume that you've done this on purpose. It doesn't assume you even, that this is on your radar. It's just like, I know we said this, but
Yeah.
this is what's actually happening. What's going on?
Right.
And so we don't even do that part to where we can totally miss. Like, it's actually not a hard conversation. It's actually not a critical or crucial or difficult conversation. It's just somebody didn't get something and you never said anything. So they still don't get it.
Yeah. This reminds me of I mean, it's not, I don't think it's super related to this, but it is similar. Someone asked me recently, a colleague on through LinkedIn, he had a TED talk recently that just came out on YouTube. And he said, hey, would love if you would go and just, support me there. Let me know kind of what your thoughts are, comment. And so I had intentions of doing that, but I read the message. I had the intention. My plate got full. I got busy. I forgot. And he could have easily made some assumptions about why I didn't follow through.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, what he did was he sent me a message and said, hey, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I know, our time gets away from us. Just wanted to remind you, which was so helpful for me.
Totally.
First of all, that he didn't make any assumptions about why I wasn't following through. But second, it was, you're giving me a reminder about something I said I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see that I see that happening in schools, in organizations, between leaders and the people who are diligently trying to meet expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But we all need reminders or light touches of conversation that help us to think about what are the expectations that we agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think you're right. Those assumptions that we create are based totally on our own perceptions and our own narratives, our own mastery experiences that we've built. Um, so I am curious to know then, what are some typical signs that a leader is frustrated but hasn't actually addressed the issue? Because I'm sure you see that, especially based on what I heard you say about your conversation earlier
Mm-hmm.
with leaders.
Um, I think it could be it could be a number of things, but often if the frustration is kind of around, I don't know why. they do this, they don't do this, and I don't know why. And so it's this, it's this place that a leader can go where it's like, I've done everything I can and it's not working and it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, Also as leaders, we all have a varying comfort and like skill with being self-reflective and being kind of like as unbiased as we possibly can. And so if a leader's not able to switch to like a reflective mode where they're able to say, I think it's this, but I guess it could be this, or like, well, I guess if he hadn't read the email, like if someone's not able to get very curious on their own, to me, that's an indication that like they might need some help getting curious. And it also might mean that there is something they're overlooking. With every good intention, I think a huge piece of a lot of this is like time. Time is so short, time is so finite, and effort and energy, and even like, we do a lot of work across the state of Tennessee right now, and district to district, there are all sorts of different rules about when can you get the staff together for a meeting, and when can you ask everybody to like read this email or blah, 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 blah. So there's all these rules about, how you use your time. And so if I'm a leader and I don't have a ton of time, or if I don't necessarily perceive this message will be particularly tricky, I mass email it and I'm like, that solved it. And so if I start asking like, okay, well, from your perspective, how should they know? Like, why should they know better? Like, I know he knows. It's like, okay, well, how do you know? Like what helps you? So sometimes, seeing the confusion and like the lack of options or lack of curiosity around like, how could this have happened? It's like, a 1,000 ways is the real answer. A million, trillion, bazillion ways.
I know. And there are so many different ways we could take this conversation. So many things that I think we could talk about just in that little bit of what you just said. In my book, I write about, so it's The Craft of Clarity, and it's all about how leaders can gain clarity for themselves, but also create clarity for their people. And I think we assume that we assume that as adults, we have built the skills needed in order to function as a highly successful leader of a group of people. But when have we ever really explicitly been taught some of these skills? Because many, especially if we're thinking about schools and we're thinking about principals, they've been groomed for these positions a lot of the time, but not developed for these positions. And so that makes it really challenging for them to be confident in having the conversations that you're kind of talking about, even though they could be embedded in just throughout a part of your day and throughout your culture, instead of it being a time-sucking conversation. Just so many things we could talk about there.
You're making me think of a lot. I have two examples, if you will. So one is like, it comes from this book, How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability. And it talks a lot about how we'll say the what, but not the how as leaders. And so, the author uses his kids. They're great examples. And he's like, I told him to clean the kitchen. And I was like, wipe the counter. And so his kid wipes the counter, but there's still stuff smeared. He didn't pick up things and wipe under it. He didn't wipe it with the materials he wanted him to. There was no cleaner involved. But at the end of the day, the expectation was wipe the counter. So if the kid had taken his hand and wiped the counter, he would have met the expectation reasonably, right? I'm a kid. And sometimes that's also hard sometimes as a leader, because you're like, what I meant. And maybe they did and maybe they didn't. Like some people are out here like cutting corners, or just kind of like, it's fun to find the loophole. And some of us are also just stressed and tired. So if you don't make it clear, then I assume you don't care about the detail at which this is done. And then also, if I don't do it well enough and you never come back to me, then I assume it was fine. So he talks about the what, and then getting super clear on the how, which is, use this cloth, use this temperature of water, do this with, and you're done. Like, it's like, he says, like, be really clear about what done looks like. And that can apply to, the countertop and to anything else. Saying like, I want everyone to make sure that they call every family and invite them to parent teacher night. Well, what do I do when 75% of them are voicemails?
Yeah.
then send a text message, then leave a voicemail, then give a call again. And like in the end, 90% should be scheduled. So
Yeah.
all those little details are more about the how than the what. And it gets me from a place where as a teacher, I could call everyone on the list. And if they don't answer, I'm done versus I call everyone and then I have more work to do to get to the outcome I need to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really big time.
And what was the name of that book? I'll post it in the show notes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's called How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability. I think it's Michael Timms.
Yeah.
And then there's this other book, or I don't know, do you have more follow-ups before we go to this other idea?
No, keep going. I do, but keep going and we'll talk about it in a second.
Gotcha. There's this other concept, the salt shaker theory. Have you heard this one?
No.
Okay, this is Danny Meyer, and he's a restaurateur in New York City. And he writes this book about, how he learned to be successful. Also, like books about the restaurateur life are like super helpful in leadership. And I have a really big ops brain too. And so just really awesome how all of those things go together. Also a great place to think about The Bear, the movie, the TV show on Hulu is another great example. But so Danny Meyer talks about the salt shaker theory. And he talks about like one of his first restaurants where he's trying to get servers to like take ownership in the work, the way that he takes ownership. He's trying to get them to do his what with his how. And he's like really frustrated because it's a journey and everybody's, at different levels of doing it the way he wants it done.
Mm-hmm.
And so this like mentor of his who's been in restaurant business forever and ever and ever takes this salt shaker and puts it in the middle of the table, or he gives it to him. He's like, put this salt shaker in the middle of the table. And so Danny puts it in the middle of the table and the mentor is like, nobody understands the middle of the table better than you. And it's your job to put the salt shaker in the middle of the table and tell everyone that that's where it goes. And then when people come eat here, it's their job to move the salt shaker around. Like you're going to use this salt shaker and then they're going to put it back in the middle. And then your job is to always put it exactly back. So it's this constant gentle pressure that keeps the salt shaker in the middle of the table. And the middle is arbitrary. It's like wherever it belongs is where it belongs.
Right.
But it's this really powerful idea. And we did this series with some leaders here in Tennessee a couple of months ago. And it's just really, really powerful idea because as a leader, it's just such a burden. It's such an emotional thing to constantly have to go to someone, different people every day for different things and be like, hey, that thing I asked you to do, you're not doing it right. Or you're not doing it. And so it can feel like this thing, like these are all grown-ups, these are adults, these are professionals. I shouldn't have to
Mm-hmm.
But the idea here is kind of twofold. So like on one, it's a little bit of like an empowering thing of like, it's just your job. Like just take the emotion out of it. It's your job to reset the salt shaker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their job to move the salt shaker, right?
Yeah.
Like I set the expectation. It's your job to meet it and you meet it as best you can. And when you're not quite there, I help you get there because that's the salt shaker. I say, put it in the middle, you put it slightly to the side and say, thanks for trying. This is exactly where the center is. And that's just my job.
Yeah.
And I can kind of take some of that like emotional angst out of it if I just accept my fate, right? Like I wanted to be a leader and this is part of it. And I think the second thing the salt shaker does for us is super helpful. If I'm picking this salt shaker up from the right corner of the table and I'm putting it back in the center and I do that 15 times a day, then it tells me people don't know where the center of the table is. So I think I'm really clear on my expectations, but the salt shaker's here, there, and everywhere, which is actually just feedback to me about the clarity of the expectation, about how achievable my expectation is, about how invested my team is in meeting my expectation. And so on one hand, it's my job. I need to suck it up and make my peace with it. And on the other, I got to listen to this salt shaker. If it's constantly in the wrong spot, do I have the wrong expectation? Like, should it be over there instead? And so I've got to be open to that. I've got to be like humble and reflective and aware. But yeah, I think those two concepts are just great. Like the what versus the how, and then this idea of like the salt shaker. It's just your job. It's just your job to put it back in the middle.
Mm-hmm. All of that is so incredibly powerful. You are saying so much of, what we talk about consistently on this show. And I think that's a testament to the people that come to the show and like the guests that I have on and the importance of the things that we're talking about is we're saying the same things again and again in so many different ways. And so my hope for you as listeners is that you're hearing the different ways that things are being said, but it's resonating with you in a different way each time, but also solidifying the importance of the message that we're trying to get across. When a leader avoids conversations, and I like how you said too, it's not always a crucial conversation. I think sometimes we have the perception that it's a crucial conversation or difficult conversation when it's really not at all. But when they do avoid even the minimal conversations that need to be had, how does it affect the culture?
Oh man, I mean, I feel like it's definitely one of those moments people talk about, like you're gonna have a culture whether you did it on purpose or not. And so when you don't address the thing, when you don't say the thing, then you just get whatever culture you get. And so I think it can come out a number of ways. So like your rule followers are going to see the person who doesn't follow the rules and be like, why do I have to follow the rules? And so there's this like resentment that breeds. And what can happen there is your rule followers can kind of split into two factions where there's some people that they just have to follow that rule. Like, even if it's the most unjust thing and nobody else ever has to follow it, like they're going to follow the rule because they're supposed to, and they're going to be really mad about it because you don't hold anyone else accountable, but they hold themselves accountable, and so they never wear leggings to work. And this person wears leggings to work all the time and never says anything about it, and it's just, even with and these are typically like high performers. And so, there's tangible and intangible repercussions there. But then there's also some people who are watching for, are you holding people accountable? And when that person accidentally wears leggings and you don't say anything, then I pull my leggings out tomorrow on purpose because you're not going to say nothing to me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be comfortable. And it's not, and I think again, there's this like, taking advantage or like not being a professional, but it's also like, and we're also just humans. And so a lot of us are really driven by purpose. And if I don't see that this rule matters and it inconveniences my life in any way, me too. I'm telling you, sometimes the people, those of us who break these rules, we know all about why. It's just, we know all about why. So those are two you can create there. But then you also do this thing where, like, let's say the person who accidentally wears the jeans or the person who's late and you never say anything, they go on believing that this is okay.
Yep.
And so to me, it's this huge disservice. And we also see this, we see this across the board where like there's somebody who's like not performing well in a school-based position, or really in a lot of positions, probably any position. But for whatever reason, they actually don't get feedback on it, but their performance is so detrimental that they can't stay where they are. And so whoever's above them, whether it's a network, a district, whatever, moves them. But no one ever tells this person that they're miserable to work with, or that they're not working as hard as the other people around them and people resent that, or that like they haven't kept up with their craft and they're just really outdated, or whatever it is. They never get the feedback, but they just keep getting moved. And again, if we're not reflective and we're not curious and we're not asking and no one is brave enough to tell us, then how can we grow?
Right. Why would we change?
Why would we change? Yeah, exactly. And then you also like take this person who's like kind of struggles to work well on teams, and then you keep putting them on new team after new team after new team. You're just exacerbating the problem.
Yes.
So like on one hand, you don't give the feedback. You make them think it's okay, which is a disservice, and you don't give the feedback and they don't get better and they continue to struggle. They might not even know that they're struggling. And so I see it as a disservice to people because we just don't know. Like we don't, in some ways, it's like, it's not our job to make people change, but it like is our job to help people see themselves, especially as leaders, especially when there's impact on the team, on kids, on learning, all that.
Yeah. I'm going on a tangent here, but so I worked with a district last month, I think it was. And we were going through the Clarity Cycle framework, and the focus is streamlining communication. And so we did, when I take people through the Clarity Cycle framework, we do listening tours to gain insight from stakeholders. So teachers were coming in small groups, and we're just kind of sharing with them, here's our area of focus, here are the goals, what's on your mind about this. And they typically will just be very open, especially if I'm the one kind of leading those listening tours, because I'm kind of this separate, I'm not in the mix of it all. I'm this outside source. But I heard one of the things that teachers were saying, it was exactly what you just mentioned. And they said, it's frustrating when I notice people coming to work late for duty and they don't see the ripple effect of problems that it causes for the rest of us, but they're also not being held accountable to the expectations that the rest of us are being held accountable to. Like, I'm getting to work on time and this person is consistently not getting to work on time. And that's frustrating. And I totally get that. And so the leadership team was kind of responding to that and saying, okay, yeah, we've heard some things, just we hope that you'll bring that to us. We know you don't want to tattle, but if you'll bring it to us, we don't know to address it if we don't know that it's happening.
Yeah.
But the conversation that we had during lunch that I had with leadership team was, I understand it is your job to address this, but at the same time, it should be a part of our culture where those people have the skills and the confidence and the trust to approach that person themselves. Like, hey, I just want to check my perception. I know you probably have some things going on, but I just need you to know that when you are late, here's how it affects my job and my duties. So is there anything we can do to help each other out here? Like, they're not having these conversations because they don't know how. It's not been modeled for them, and it's not the expectation. It's not a part of the culture. So that's my word vomit there. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I mean, I completely agree. I was thinking that as you were kind of setting up the story, and it's gosh, again, as a leader, like, we can't see everything. And in some cases it's inappropriate for us to try. And there's so much power in peer relationships and like a healthy sort of peer pressure. And there's empowerment too. Like, if I am the rule follower who is always on time and I feel like I'm not allowed to say anything to you and you're not, that's like really limiting for me and really frustrating. I think you're right to say that without the leader, without it coming from the top of like, this is the culture we have as a team, like, we all hold ourselves accountable. And like, I can tell you something because I'm your boss, but like, your peer can tell you something because we're all in charge of our culture. We're all in charge of the bar. We're all in charge of our outcomes.
Yes.
I think that's so important, and also empowering, but it has to be, again, it goes back to like, you have a culture, either you did it on purpose or you didn't. And so if you on purpose say like, we are all in this and we're all doing it, that also shows up in different ways. So when you're, so often the principal does get, I hate to say even tattle, because it's not tattle, because if there's nowhere to put it, if there's nowhere to place my complaint, if there's nowhere to ask for help, then like, what am I supposed to do? So like, tattling is too juvenile word, but for the concerns that come to a principal, let's say, a pro move is for a principal to say, okay, great. What are you going to say? How are you going to do it? And when someone's like, oh, I couldn't possibly, it's like, well, why not? And I like what you said, Casey, about like, they don't know how to have it. And so, I've seen schools where like, there's an entire professional development session on how to have these conversations. And this expectation that like, we're going to have these conversations together. And so if it's as simple as every time you make copies, you leave that copy machine jammed, and you did, and you went to the other one and you jammed that one too. And the one you found in the end, you left without any paper in it, and these people and they do it all the time, and so it's like, we all know, like you could say it without this person's name and everyone's like, it's this person. And then you say, who said something to them about it?
Yeah.
Nobody. Because we're polite, because we don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to rock a boat, because this person might not respond well, because I don't know how. I do think like, obviously, like all the crucial conversations and critical and difficult like it's all really good, but I do think it's put us in a little bit of a place where like, we make these things bigger than they are. And it becomes immediately like we're on opposite sides when in reality, when these are done well, it's actually a problem solving conversation. It's
Mhm.
actually like, I've got a problem and you're a big part of it. Let me tell
Yeah.
you, and so I think one thing, and I know that also, like, we're not, a lot of us are like conflict averse. And I do naturally have a personality where, like, I don't consider those things conflict. And it's a little bit of a chicken or an egg. I'm uncomfortable, hypothetically me, I'm uncomfortable with these conflicty conversations because I really haven't had many of them. And then I don't have them because I'm uncomfortable because I don't have them, and so then
Yeah.
I've gotten so much more comfortable with them because I see how they pan out most of the time. And most of the time, it's like a cross wire, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, you didn't realize that this was having, not all the time, but most of the time, it's something we can solve. Or it's like, okay, I hate doing that, but now that I understand that you care and you're going to talk to me about it, let's see what we can do here.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many ways to solve these problems, but I think one reason we avoid it so much is we call it conflict, and we don't see it as an opportunity to bring a problem to someone and ask for help solving it, which is just
Yeah.
such a different lens.
Yeah. Already, I am taking away, I don't know what my audience is going to take, or our audience is going to take away from this, but my takeaway, listeners, is it's could be just a problem solving conversation, not a crucial conversation. So let's think about what it actually is and take away some of the pressure, take some of the pressure off of ourselves
Totally.
and off of other people. So, okay, with that said, I think we just kind of, you addressed the question that I had next. So then let's talk about strategies, like actual strategies that you feel like are helpful for leaders when they feel like they are about to have what's an uncomfortable conversation. And I think it's safe to say that even if it is a problem solving conversation, because like you said, we get into that cycle, it
Hmm.
feels uncomfortable. So what are some strategies that you suggest for people?
So I think we lean a lot on the crucial accountability model and from Crucial Conversations. And it's beautiful. It gives you a continuum, and it's like, what do you do before your conversation? What do you do during your conversation? And I think the most important thing that you can do before you go in is just check your stories
Mm,
and just check yourself for, what do I think is real and how do I know it's real? And sometimes some of us are really good and we've nailed it and we know exactly what it is. But a lot of times we're really good and we don't know what it is. And so it's just important because you can walk up and be like, she does this because she doesn't care, or he does this because he's overwhelmed. And that's a story I'm telling myself.
yeah.
I actually don't have evidence that's like objectively like that is what it is. And this person has never told me that's what it was. And so, or even just like, well, this team is always fussy. So they're going to fuss about something. So if they say that, the recess bell is always late, they're just fussing, versus like, no, the recess bell is late. Like they might be difficult. And that doesn't mean we don't investigate their needs and concerns, and like fully engage in that problem solving conversation. So I think you check your stories um, as much as you can. And then I think you should walk in. The phrase they use is like describing the gap, which is some, we referenced it earlier, as concisely as you can. This is the expectation. This is what I see. Question: what's going
Mhm,
on?
mhm.
And it's neutral. And it gives people a space for, I'm not being attacked. You're not coming at me. It's, hey, it's popcorn day today, and you said you're bringing the popcorn. I didn't see any in the teacher workroom. Is it somewhere?
Yeah,
That's it. And
right,
I walk in knowing it's nowhere, but I
right,
don't need to walk in and be like, you don't have the popcorn. Set it up in a way that invites someone into a conversation and doesn't immediately put them on guard.
right.
Because you don't know the answer. The real is you don't know the answer. So if you walk in strong and then you've learned that there's a real answer, you're going to feel really dumb. And
Yeah,
sometimes you look really bad. And you've broken some trust, or you've accidentally been accusatory to someone and put them on the defense, when really what you are at your core is curious because you don't know what's going on.
mhm, mhm. And you could be part of the problem,
Yes.
you
It's
know?
always a lot of fun to find out that you're part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
definitely could have been a lack of clarity issue,
Mhm.
and I It's so what you're talking about reminds me. I talk all the time about perception checking, which is part of Susan Scott's work from Fierce Conversations. And she talks a
Mhm.
lot about, you take there is a way to say what our gut is telling us to say
Mhm.
almost every single time. And too often we go without having said it, and it just results in a worse situation that could have been resolved, very, very easily. But she talks about taking what your private thought is, neutralizing it, and thinking about all of those assumptions, the narratives that you've created, and then presenting it as just this separate object, this objective thing that we're both going to look at together. And so I'm almost presenting it on a platter and saying, let's take a look at this together and check each other's assumptions. Is my perception accurate, or is there a different narrative? Is there something different going on that maybe I'm not seeing? And
Mhm.
sometimes that does require us to be ready to recognize that we are contributing to the issue or problem. And sometimes it's not even necessarily a problem. It could just be, oh, didn't even realize that. Like,
Mhm.
totally, just like my conversation earlier with the colleague who said, hey, go check out my YouTube video. Oh, you're right. Just totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Not a big
Not,
deal. And the
yeah.
number of times it's like, "Hey, I noticed you didn't print this thing out." And they're like, Was I supposed to print it?" And you're like, "Yeah, I said to print it." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't read that."
Yep.
And then you go back and you didn't write it.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah.
meant to, but you didn't. And so, it just and it's also different if this is a repeat thing and this is a pattern and this has a malicious undertones. Like, don't hear me say, like, let things slide or like be neutral and kind for everything. But in a
Right.
place where I don't know what's going on, in a place where this is the first interaction of this type or on this issue, it just always behooves you to be open-minded, and to be curious, because
Right.
yeah, sometimes it is on us. And actually, as a leader, it's the salt shaker. So no matter what, it is on me. Like,
Hmm.
however you spin it, if an expectation has been missed, it's my job.
Yeah.
It's my job to
And
go back and get it.
it's it's like you have muscles that you have to build over time. If
Mhm.
you can build the muscle of being neutral and approaching these conversations from a neutral standing and with curiosity, then you can start to build other muscles, because that will eventually become a habit. And so now I can start to build the habit of, okay, now I really do have a crucial conversation that I have to address. So how am I going to lean into this habit that I've built and start to build a new habit that feels a little bit uncomfortable right now?
Mhm.
Um, okay, so as we wrap up, I totally went over time. Guys, before we started this episode, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to keep it at 30 minutes. That's what I don't even know what I'm talking about. That's not realistic. I get into these conversations and I'm like, no, we could just
Mhm.
keep hours. Let's have a
Oh,
2-hour conversation. Um,
absolutely.
so how would you say that school leaders can build a culture where this just direct, respectful communication just becomes part of the norm? Where do
Yeah.
they start?
I mean, I think especially if it's gonna be kind of something that feels new, or feels different,
Mhm.
then I think it's always super helpful for the leader to kind of center themselves in the conversation and say, like, "Hey guys, we're all learning, we're all getting better at our craft. Me as the principal, one of my jobs is to hold people accountable, and something I really hate doing. Or it's something I don't know how to do. And so I'm doing
Yes.
my best. I'm reading a book, I'm talking to my coach. I saw a podcast the other day. And so I'm going to be trying some things out. I just want to give you a heads up, because if it feels new or if we haven't had this conversation before, like, it might be that it is new and we haven't had it before. And I'm
Yeah.
going to do my best, and you know that I care about you and I care about our team, and I want your feedback. So if we have a
Mhm.
conversation doesn't feel good, please tell me. And also, if we have a conversation and it does feel good, I'd love to know so that I can keep doing that too. Just be honest with people. Just
Yes.
tell them, I'm
Yep.
learning here.
Yep.
And then when I ask you to learn, I got legs to stand on because you're watching me learn. And I told you I was learning. So it's the give and take there.
Yeah. I love that so much, so much. I don't know who I listened to. This was been years ago. In fact, it's become, I should know who it comes from because I've included it as part of my Reflective Leaders Institute. But one of the things that we talk about is creating your square squad.
Mm,
And I know Brene Brown talks a lot about the Your Square Squad too, but I pull in from another thought leader. He talks about how does he say it? I want to know how you experience me. And so when you reach out to your
Mm,
Square Squad, which is literally, you can fit it on just a 1 inch sheet of paper, like one by one. And it's not necessarily the people that are closest to you, it's the people that you know are going to give you very honest feedback. And you ask them, tell me, I want to know how you experience me in these situations. And I think that's so powerful and relates to what you're talking about, is having the guts to be vulnerable enough with your people that you are becoming a multiplier of more vulnerable people in your
mhm,
organization. And
mhm.
that's going to just naturally improve the culture of your school.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a good conversation. It's given me a lot to think about. So I appreciate that so much, Zoe.
Sure. It's
I
great
would love
to
for
do
you to
this.
share where everyone can find you.
Oh, you can find me on the LinkedIn for sure. I have two dots over my E that just aren't able to show up in this format. So it can be hard to find me on the LinkedIn. But if you look up Pivot School Improvement Leaders, either on the LinkedIn or on the website, I use the as a throwaway word, so I just want to be very clear. I know it's LinkedIn. It's fine. Um, yeah, on the LinkedIn.
Call it that from now on. It's like around here we say the Walmart. We say
Exactly. The Target. Uh-huh. Well, and then when Facebook came out, it was like thefacebook.com. So it's like it's used ironically, but then it just sounds silly. So there it is.
so funny.
Mhm.
Love
But
it.
yeah, so we have a website. You can look up Pivot School Improvement Leaders. And then we're on LinkedIn, and we would love to hear from you. Would love to hear your stories too. Gosh, everyone's got them. Everyone's got them.
Everyone,
And that's like
yes,
the biggest thing about the work is just bringing people together and being like, you're not the only one that struggles with whatever it is you're struggling with, like
yes.
guaranteed you're not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, guys, I'm going to be putting all of those things that Zoe just mentioned in the show notes. So you can click on the links there. If you're on YouTube, you're not going to see the show notes. So definitely go over to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you catch your podcast episodes, because the show notes will be there and you'll see the links there. Okay. Again, Zoe, I've loved this conversation. And listeners, let us know what was most useful for you from this conversation. Definitely email me. And I'm going to let most of you know, some of you have been emailing me at catchingupwithkc@gmail.com. That is changing a little. You still can catch me there, but you can find me at kc@claritydriventeams.com. I'm going to put that in the show notes as well. And listen, I read those emails, I read your reviews, and we want to know what stood out to you so we can create more episodes just like this with the things that matter most to you. Okay, Zoe, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
All right, bye everybody. Hey there, thanks for joining this episode. I would love for you to do me 3 solid favors before you head out. Number 1, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great guests and content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, share this show. Share it with your like-minded colleagues and friends who want to learn how to lead clarity-driven teams. And finally, connect with me on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with KC on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Until next time, go off and create teams that leave people feeling inspired, empowered, and eager for more each day.